Hi everyone. As you know, from Ricky's great introduction, my name is Duquemin. I have worked as an osteopath over here. I've also worked as a healer, therapist, coach, whatever, actor, model, maybe as well. And I'm here today to talk about living in flow. But first, before we do that, I want to do a little quick exercise with you all. So I'm just going to invite you all to close your eyes. Settle yourself on the chair. Feel your buttocks sitting on the chair. And then just want you to slowly bring your awareness to your chest. Just into your heart space. Allow your attention to drop into that heart space. And just see what's going on there now. What are you aware of? What's going on? What's the tone that's there for you? And then I'm going to ask you to do a little bit of heart breathing. So what I want you to do is just take a deep breath in through your nose, and as you breathe in, just imagine you're inhaling into your heart area. So take a deep breath in through your heart. As you breathe out, let that come out of your heart as well. And then a couple more breaths, so breath in through your heart area. And then out through your heart as well. And then once more, inhaling and exhaling. And now what I want you to do is bring into your mind someone that you really care about. It could be a loved one, it could be a spouse, a partner, potentially a best friend, a child, or maybe even just a pet. And as you bring that person into your mind, I want you to imagine a real deep sense of compassion for that person. Really feeling compassion fill your heart space. And as that compassion spreads to that person, I want you to allow that compassion to spread to your neighbours sitting next to you. Allow your compassion to fill the room. Allow your compassion to spread out of the room, healing the world. As you really feel that deep sense of compassion, just slowly bring your attention back into your body and the chair that you're sitting on, and gently open your eyes again. Now, we're going to come back to why that tool is so effective later on in the talk. But for now, I'm just going to jump into a little bit of a backstory about why I'm here. So about 4 years ago, one December afternoon, I was sitting on my sofa about to chat to my therapist. I've been working with my therapist, Hilary, for about 3 years after the death of my father. After the death of my father, I'd suffered with some mental and emotional health issues, and I found therapy a really, really useful tool. So I'd worked with her for about 3 years, and at that time, I'd really got to the point where I thought I knew everything there was to know about my experience. I knew that my mother had been quite ill when I was younger, and it had been tough for me to look after her. I knew that my dad had been into working and playing rugby and partying hard and wasn't around quite as much as I wanted him to be. And I knew that my sister had struggled with some emotional and depression in her teens, and that had been hard for me to deal with as well. So I really felt that I had a sense of my whole history. I really sensed that I knew who I was, what my story was, and where I was going with it. And so that day I came on the phone to Hilary and I said, Hilary, I really feel I've got everything nailed down. I really know what's going on in my life. And I really think we should stop. And then she said one question which changed my life. And it changed my life forever. And it was a very, very simple question. She said, what if you didn't know anything? So I took that on board, I heard what she said, and then a very strange thing happened. I started to feel that I was losing my identity. I started to feel that I was coming at one with the sofa. I started to feel this incredible sense of compassion, this real sense of welling up of oneness, of being completely at one with the universe. It was a very, very profound experience. And for the next hour, I sat there whilst these feelings just grew and grew and grew, and Hilary sat on the end of the phone, wondering probably what she was going to do with this very strange client. But that afternoon, after I got off the call with Hilary, I found that the state stayed with me. I went to the playground to pick up my daughter, and I felt a profound sense of unity with all the parents there. As I spent the afternoon with my daughter, I found this incredible sense of well-being and of connection and of recognizing her as this little wonderful spirit. And I even remember crying a few tears that evening at the magnificence of the universe. So what was going on? This was a very, very strange experience, because the next day I woke up, and whilst there was still some of that sort of feeling in there, by and large, a lot of it had gone. And so I was left with this thought about what had happened during that day. But I also was aware that something else had shifted dramatically. Something else had changed in my life. There were parts of my personality that I was previously reactive to the day before this event, and then there were things that I was reactive to that just were no longer there. Literally overnight they had dropped away and parts of my personality had shifted. Sure, I was still the angry curmudgeon at home occasionally, I'm sure my wife and child will tell you, but a lot of the time I had found that a real shift in my personality had taken place literally in the space of several hours. So I was intrigued. My history, my first time I got into thinking about body and mind was actually as an osteopath in the late 1990s, training in London and then coming back in 2001 and starting my own practice. In Guernsey, I started to realise that a lot of my clients would come in with real stress. They were going through divorces, they were going through deaths, they were going through real business issues, and they were coming with this stress, and they'd bring this stress and they'd have physical pain. Now, no one was really talking about this back then, the fact that you could link mental and emotional stress with physical stress. But I was intrigued, so I started to do more research into mind and body. And then over the years, I did some coaching training in 2006, and I started to get more interested in looking at how the body works in conjunction with the mind. And then in 2012, I did some training called biodynamic craniosacral therapy. In this training, we were taught two key things. Firstly, that we are all energetic beings. We are energetic beings who have an electromagnetic field, and we exist field within fields within fields. So our own personal electromagnetic field is made up of the electrical charges that we have when we have thoughts, and as these thoughts trigger release of chemicals, the chemical response in our body leads to a magnetic charge, so we have electromagnetic pulse which can be measured around our bodies. And I also learned that by working with clients in deep states of relaxation on a table, you could access healing states that were just not possible in normal waking consciousness. So I became more and more intrigued in this whole process. What was going on with these clients to allow them to heal so deeply, and what had happened to my experience with Hilary. So as I deepened into this experience, I really wanted to understand what was going on, and the next thing that came up to me about 2 or 3 years ago was the study of brainwaves. And brainwaves really made a rapid transformation in the way I thought about what was going on. Now, there are 5 basic levels of brainwave. The first one is gamma, that's the highest frequency. It's found in very, very experienced meditators, and it's also found when parts of our brain switch on at a very, very organized level and join together, and they form very, very highly organized states of frequency. We're not going to go too much into that today because most people won't experience too much gamma in their day-to-day living. But what we do experience is beta state. So beta state is a very, very powerful state of our normal consciousness, and we'll come back to the impact of that level because it has 3 different levels that it affects our lives, and we'll come back to that in just a minute. The next level down from beta is alpha. Alpha state of brain wave is when we are very deeply relaxed. It's when we are calm, almost in a meditative state. It's also found just before we drop off to sleep. It's that sort of very deeply relaxed state. It brings a certain amount of creativity, and it also has been found to actually lead to lowering depression levels and lowering anxiety by being just able to live in this alpha state. The next level down is theta. Now, theta is associated with sleep, with rapid eye movement sleep. So it's really the states we are when we're in deep dreaming. It's also the states we actually go through when we are very young children. From 2 to the age of 6, we are subconsciously programmed with our beliefs. The beliefs we take in from the world around us, from our parents, from teachers, become very, very deeply ingrained belief systems that we never really get to access in conscious, awakened states, but in subconscious, we can start to affect them. So that's the level of theta. The final level is the level of delta, which is found very much in when we're really dead to the world, when we're in very, very deep sleep. We're not even aware of our own body. We're literally just in that very deep, transformative healing sleep. So those are the 5 levels, but the most important one for us to talk about today is beta. So beta has 3 basic levels. A low-level beta is the level that you're probably all at now. You're sort of sitting in your chairs, not too stressed. You're listening to what I say. You might be interested a little bit in what I'm saying, so you've got a low level of focus. However, if I was to say to you, I'm actually going to give you an exam in the next hour on what I've said, and there's a cash prize for you to perform the top, you would probably all start to go from low-level beta into mid-level beta. Mid-level beta would be the state of focus, the state of a higher state of arousal, taking notes on what I'm saying, really starting to study for this test. But then if I was to equally tell you that for the worst performing of you in this exam, you were going to go to prison for 5 years, you would probably all go from mid-level beta into high-level beta. You would be chaotic, you would be disorganized, you would be outraged, you'd flow into anxiety, you'd go into a very incoherent brainwave pattern. Now, sadly, this is a very, the life we live in, as Corinne and other people have mentioned before, the lives we live are very chaotic and very stressful, and we often will find ourselves in mid to high level beta from day to day. And this is really not a healthy way to be. And so this is where the connection with our first exercise comes in. The exercise we just did was called a heart coherence exercise. The basic behind a heart coherence exercise is that previously it was thought that the brain was really in charge of the heart, but over the past few years it's really well researched that the heart has 40,000 neurons that can learn, sense, feel and remember, and there's actually more pathways back from the heart to the brain than there is the other way around. So actually the heart is playing a huge part in regulating our brain and vice versa. So it's really important for these situations to recognise that our heart is a really, really big influencer on our brain. So when we're in these incoherent brain states, they actually work into the heart as well. So I think probably any of us know when we're in these big stress, anxiety states where we're really worried, we're really stressed, our heart can feel like we get palpitations, we can feel emotions such as anxiety, stress and all that sort of thing. And actually one of the simplest ways to bring ourselves out of this confused brain state is actually to start working with our hearts. So the exercise I just did now was dropping you into your heart awareness. It was giving a resonance, bringing a coherence to your heart. So from this chaotic, confused brainwave and a chaotic, confused heart pattern, you can start to have this nice, regulated, straightforward, beautiful, syncopated heart. And that gives feedback into the brain, which starts to take us out of those high-level situations of beta, can bring us into mid-level and low-level beta. And as we really start to feel compassion, as we really start to feel these deeper feelings in our hearts, then our brains can go down from these levels of beta into alpha and even theta. So in deep meditative states where we're aware of our heart and what's going on there, our brains follow and move into these deeper states too. And this was really where my experience with Hilary began to make sense. What had happened is that in that moment she'd asked me a question that had completely confused my rational brain. My logical brain had just pinged out of sync, and now I was taking on new levels of information. I moved from my beta state through confusion into alpha and theta state. That deep level of oneness that I was feeling, the merging with the sofa was all part of the same thing. I'd gone down from these brain states into this deeply coherent brainwave. The brainwave had settled into my heart. I was starting to feel more compassion. I was starting to feel oneness. I was starting to feel serenity and peace. And so my heart was guiding, as the compassion and the oneness grew, my heart was guiding even deeper states of awareness. And as we said before, in these deeper states of alpha and theta states of brain awareness, healing happens. Healing can happen overnight. It can literally happen in a minute. Subconscious programs and beliefs, old traumatic emotional patterns, old trauma can literally turn off overnight, within minutes. And it has been profoundly noted in so much research now that this is really happening. When we can start to access these more transformative states of awareness, instant transformation can happen. And so, as I became aware of this experience with Hilary, I started to understand that my own life had a chance to really change. Previously, I think I was probably living in a very, very stressed environment, a very, very stressed mental environment, always worrying about the future, always worrying about the past. But as I started to take on board some of the things that I was learning, I started to study with more teachers. I started to study with coaches and healers throughout the world. And in the last 2 years, there's been a huge shift in my own levels of consciousness and awareness. And this has actually been facilitated by a global change, which is starting to notice that actually these peak states are available to all of us. This state, I call it living in flow, where we start to live from a sense of heart, where we start to be able to access alpha and beta states at will, where we start to learn to drop into deep meditative states, where we can change belief systems, where we can change emotional patterns, where we can deal with trauma. And there are very, very simple techniques that I've been taught and that are being generated through neurofeedback, through neuroscience, through energy medicine. All of these things are playing a huge part in making rapid changes in people's lives. So I refer to this, as I said before, I refer to this as a sense of living in flow consciousness. And that's really what it is. Because as you start to live from these tenets, all the stresses and all the anxieties that I used to have about life have just fallen away. And it's been replaced by a deep sense of trust, a deep sense of surrender, more peace, more clarity, more strength, a more feeling of being energized, a feeling of just being much more in control of my environment. And that's really changed as a matter of understanding exactly what was going on. For me, it was important to understand from a scientific perspective what was going on and then dedicate myself to actually making those changes. So I have a very, very rigorous meditation practice now, which allows me to drop from these sort of chaotic beta states into alpha and theta very, very easily. And within those practices, I also practice clearing subconscious beliefs. I also practice clearing somato-emotional patterns that are with me. And I also practice creating new positive belief systems. In belief systems, in fact, negative beliefs create a glass ceiling that we can't go below, and positive beliefs create a ground for us to stand on so that we feel more supported. So as I create these positive beliefs, I believe that I can stand higher, I believe I can achieve more, success becomes more effortless, and those states of flow become more achievable. And as the glass ceiling moves away, you start to realize that life is limitless. It's possible to live from real, deep, heartfelt serenity, confidence, and inner peace. And these new techniques often mean that we can actually make internal changes, but then there's also an external sort of philosophy that I follow as well now, which is again guided by these teachers and leaders that I'm learning from on a daily basis. One of the things is learning to live from your intuition. Our brain can often pull us out of thinking. Our thinking pulls us into the past or into the future. But actually dropping into our heart, dropping into our gut and learning to live from our intuition and learning to make choices from that space is so empowering. Following my highest excitement is a daily practice now. I find that if I actually follow what I'm really guided to do, if I drop into my intuition and what do I really want to do in this moment and I follow that, I am instantly rewarded for it. I no longer make choices from a point of stress or anxiety. I make choices from a point of confidence and trust. And there's a real deep sense of actually trusting the universe. Trust the universe that is unfolding in the only way it can. It's unfolding in the best way that it possibly knows how, and you just have to trust and surrender to that process. Previously, I tried to control my environment, I tried to control my situation in life, and that was always leading me into negative paths. But once you open to trust and to surrender, you allow the universe to unfold as it is. It can only unfold one way, and it's unfolding the way it is. And if we just trust that process and give all our heart and our soul into that process and just to welcoming its path that it shows for us, then real change starts to happen. I'm coming to the end of my talk now, so I now teach this on a daily basis to my clients. I do some small group work as well. But it's a really, really powerful thing. If I could say anything, I would really recommend two things. Really becoming aware of this heart. Really starting to settle deeply into your heart. And really start to work in some form of meditative practice. Something that allows you to come out of these stressed brain waves and into these alpha and theta states where you can literally start to reprogram your energetic system and reprogram stuck emotions and change your mental images and thoughts. So thanks for having time to listen to me today. I wish you all the best. You can always have a chat with me later if you'd like to, but if not, have a lovely day and I wish you all the best. Thank you.